Probably edited me out, that's probably why.
No, it came out great. So, you just talk to me, so you don't have to look at the scary camera. And I'm not mic'd, so when I ask you a question, you should try to answer in a complete phrase. So if
Should I
I say,
want to repeat the question, sort of, kind of? Include the question in the answer
yeah,
thing?
so if I say, you know, what's the one best thing about AIM? You say, you know, the one best thing about AIM is blah.
Is what? Oh, okay.
Whatever. Is the charming moderator.
She's such a bitch.
Every year, meaner and meaner. Yeah, and we're going to focus on AIM. I might ask you at the end a question about physician's practice, in case you're wanting to establish.
Yeah.
So the very first thing we'll have you do is just say and spell your name and title and company.
My name, Jose Jimenez. You wouldn't even remember that. You ready?
Yeah. And you'll look right at our beautiful
Name.
moderator.
Name, Cliff Daniels, Senior Vice President, Chief Strategy Officer at Methodist Hospital of Southern California.
And can you spell out your name? So we're sure
Oh, spelled Cliffordaniels.
that's the hardest part. I find that hard to do, like, somehow.
Hospital at, never mind.
All right, so we're here at AIM. You've come a number of years. When you think about AIM, what's the one key word that crosses your mind?
Actually, 3 keywords cross my mind when I think about AIM: exchange of ideas. I think one of the great benefits to being a client of physician's practice is that it's exclusive to each hospital within its own market. And so physician's practice clients can come to AIM without the fear of, letting loose proprietary information to a competitor that's going to use it adversely against them. So one of the great values that I find at AIM is the ability to interact with other physicians' practice clients and talk about what are you doing to make your sponsorship more effective and make doctors more interested in working with your hospital. And quite frankly, in the 6-7 years that we've been coming here, I've never failed to come away with at least one good tidbit that we were able to implement and help make our sponsorship more effective.
Great. It seems like there's a real power to the networking. Talk a little bit about the opportunities that you have to do networking while at the event.
Okay, now I'm going to give you a little bit of criticism because the networking this year is missing the pre-conference formal workshop that we've had the last 3 or 4 years. And although I say that now, this is the first year I haven't been able to get here till 10 o'clock at night the night before, so I would have missed that had you had it. But I find that as one of the biggest, highest value pieces to AIM is that formal pre-conference workshop where you can sit down in an informal, at tables, not over cocktails, but just to sit down with the purpose of what are you doing, what have you done this year that's made your sponsorship of the magazine more effective? What have you done? What have you found in working with Pam or with Steve or whoever might be at Physician's Practice to make it easier to put out the monthly edition? Because it is a challenge. As I tell folks, I've just changed jobs. I'm at Methodist now for just under a year, and I brought our membership or clientship of Physician's Practice to my new hospital. And I told our staff that they could corroborate this with my old staff. Producing Physician's Practice 7 or 8 times a year is not a little bit of work. It takes a lot, to make it effective. You could do it the easy way out and put in simple things and easy things that typically, marketing people put out. That's not what physicians want to see. They find great value in the magazine in the first place, the content that helps them operate their practices better, helps them do more effective billing and collection, things of that nature. But what I have found in our experience is what they look for in the hospital insert each month is highly clinical information about either new technology the hospital has invested in or new physician specialties that are on staff, and looking at some of the papers and abstracts that some of these doctors have previously published that talks about, highly clinical information in that format out of some of the, reprints from the New England Journal or the Journal of the American Society of JAMA. So those are the kinds of things that I think that from a networking standpoint I have found of value. I will tell you this year though, you've assembled a great cast of speakers, having just sat through the first half of day one. Again, I think the ability for them to present information that allows clients to take back, tidbits here and there is what's most effective about being here at AIM.
Can you give me one example of a specific thing you learned this morning that was going to be helpful?
Interesting. Actually, it's a reminder of something I should have done when I got here, is that is plotting out the geographic locations, the street locations of primary care practices. I haven't done that yet. We've been so consumed with getting, we have a new, the administrative team at Methodist is pretty much brand new. We've all been there. Our longest tenured member has been there a year and a half. It's our CEO, and I've been there about a year. So we're sort of all getting used to each other, and there's a lot of priorities, and I won't go into the details here. But one of the things we need to do that I was reminded of by one of the speakers that's critically important is you got to know where your competition is looking and where the current need is for primary care access locations, be that primary care practices, urgent care centers, things of that nature, where people can conveniently come to doctors that utilize your specialists in your hospital.
So there's other conferences that address issues relevant to hospital marketing. There's SHUSHMED, there's the AAPL, this borders on that. What makes AIM distinct?
I think there's a one-word answer. I got a one-word answer for you. The intimacy of AIM. SHUSHMED, as we've all been there, is like going to one of the national political conventions. There's probably 2,000 people that come to that thing. I'm guessing there's a lot of people. And it's more difficult to network and exchange ideas, because of the sheer size of the thing. But also, it has aspects to it where in a general session, you're in a room with 2,000 people, it's hard to have a personal conversation. They always have the exhibit hall they want to focus people through because sponsors are paying money for that. I think the intimacy of AIM, I'm not afraid of the size of it becoming, 100, 200 people. That still, I think, retains its intimacy. But I don't envision AIM having a big hall of, exhibitors and the ability. I'll tell you also the ability to interact with you and the staff of UBM Medica, because physician's practice now that it's grown and become part of a big organization is more than just physician's practice. I've learned that, you've taught me the online resources, the things that we can implement by being a physician's practice client, the resources that we have access to are of great value as well. And learning more about those, I haven't taken full advantage of all that either. Learning more about those each year and putting little tidbits each year in place adds value to the membership of physician's practice as well.
Is there anything else you would say to somebody about the event? Like, say they were trying to decide whether to come or not. Anything else we haven't covered?
No, I think those two things. I think the opportunity to exchange ideas freely, uninhibitedly, if there's such a word, so you can be unafraid of exposing secrets to a competitor is important, and then the intimacy that you really do have that opportunity to talk to people who are either your peers from a career level or from hospital to hospital, bed size or degree of tertiary services. We all face different challenges these days, but there's a commonality among what we're facing with respect to reform and with respect to physician issues that really, it's nice to have the opportunity to talk with folks that are seeing the same things and have, we all have different ideas. Everybody can't think of every single solution, and being able to hear about different approaches enables you to maybe solve problems more effectively for yourself in your own local markets.
And you're also serious, so now I just have to ask you this. Receptions, dinners, how much fun do we have?
We have a blast. The other word, let's see, exchange of ideas, intimacy, fun. And AIM is always a very fun conference, particularly the night in between the two nights. It's after the formal networking dinner, there's always the informal networking dinner. So I'd say fun. It's worth coming to AIM for that reason too. We'll relax a little bit.
Great. Okay, so let me just ask you one question about physician's practice as you've been applying for a long time. Let me ask you a question this way. Like, you changed jobs a year ago. It's kind of a high-risk situation. You don't want to put too much, political clout against something that you're not sure about. So when you presented physician's practice internally, what was the main argument you used to convince people that physician's practice was going to be worth doing?
Physician's practice represents a not too common opportunity for hospitals to demonstrate their empathy with physicians. The magazine doesn't talk about hospitals. It doesn't talk about, please come here. It doesn't talk about, we just bought this and that. It talks about, doctor, how do you staff your office more efficiently? How do you code, how do you deal with managed care plans that challenge you for upcoding? I've read through it myself without great interest, I must tell you, but from a physician perspective, if I was a solo practitioner, I like to role play. If I was a solo practitioner reading this magazine, It's a wealth of information. And I will tell you, before we subscribed 6, 7 years ago, I acid tested this with some of the staff and with our chief medical officer out in the desert. And he's a retired anesthesiologist. And he says, wow, yeah, he found great value. And he says, I wish I had some of this when I was running the anesthesia group, because it would have helped me do my job better, and I could have been a doctor more frequently instead of having to worry about the business end. So I think that the sell point was, it's difficult enough to get in front of these guys and get their attention to make them recognize you're on their side, because there's always been this kind of tension between doctors and hospitals. And I think physicians' practice represents just one little way, albeit, of demonstrating to doctors that there is some empathy on the side of the hospital, because they get it for free, and the hospital doesn't do it for free. I don't let that get lost on them either, I must add. But it's worth it. It's a worthwhile investment. Then we get a little bit of a commercial with the insert 7 or 8 times a year. But again, configuring that to be focused on what's of interest to the doctor, not necessarily the hospital, is, I think, a real key point to make sure that clients remember as well.